Hello and welcome back to the fall of Sargon on No Bullshit, and more specifically, hello to Sargon of Akkad himself. Hey guy. Following my first part in this series, I was greeted by an interesting comment from the stepfather himself. Within a few short hours of my video's release, Sargon caught wind of it and decided to leave this gem in the comment section. I haven't watched it yet, but I predict the following lies and mistakes. I knew what happened on the Discord server. I did not tell Kraut to stop. Individualism is not collectivism, and doxing is finding things people have posted to social media and published IRL. Sorry, that's my best British accent. I tried to sound as haughty-taughty as I could. But the thing about this comment is, it's a very funny thing to say, especially considering Sargon knew Kraut was looking up research, and eventually people's doxes on his server. Kraut told him himself, and then the comment goes on about individualism, which I never mentioned. And finally, that bit about doxing is finding things people have posted in social media in real life? Well, that's an interesting defense of doxing you got there, Carl. I guess I can call you Carl now since the information's out there, right? It's almost like this defense vindicates people who release personal information on someone, so long as it was out there at some point already, which, let's be real, all our information is out there, if you look hard enough. And this conveniently plays into the Kiwi Farms angle I spoke about last week, on part 1, where doxers like Kraut use message boards like Kiwi Farms to launder private information so other people like Sargon can spread that to everyone and attack and smear whoever they want. Pretty convenient. Also, inadvertently, Sargon is defending Red Pill Black's social autopsy project here, the one everyone went crazy about last year. I guess her doxing side is okay now since the information is public and already out there. I disagree, but this appears to be Sargon's stance. But let's not get too bogged down with the doxing, smearing, and Kraut and Tea stuff today. That was already covered enough in part 1. Today we're going to finally get into Sargon's official fall from grace. And already, from going over this Sargon comment, we're beginning to see one major aspect of it. Sargon is becoming the Thane he once hated. It's kind of like that famous quote from The Dark Knight.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And well, Sargon himself has been a supposed hero for years, battling SJWs and, more recently, the alt-right. But now, with the dawn of 2018 upon us, Sargon has not only begun to become the villain, he's also become very much like the feminists, progressives, and conservatives he spent so much time hating himself. For example, back to this comment, doesn't it seem like a pretty SJW move to just arrogantly comment on a video criticizing you without even watching it? Sargon's inflated and recently bruised ego has become a big factor in his demise here. Couple that with his use of the slanderous Kiwi Farms information, which is strikingly similar to getting private information from social autopsy when that was around, and well, now we've got Sargon commenting and defending doxing in the same ways Red Pill Black did and other SJWs. Next, let's get to the now infamous debate, a matter of chance but also in a way coincidence. Let me explain. First, we have to briefly tell Andy Worski's part in this. Andy, better known as Adam, Murder a Yid, and I'll Kill Your Kid Worski, ended up playing a key part in today's story. In the fallout of Kraut's autistic doxing server we went over in part 1, Worski ended up not only being burned by the lies and deceits of Kraut and T and his main henchman Jeff Holiday, not only did they fuck with Andy, they also ended up getting exposed by him in the resulting live streams and discussions on his channel. Adam Worski had become red pill, not only to the left's horrible lies and deceptions, but he also had awoken to the fact that the far right was not the enemy they were previously made out to be. In fact, many conservatives, including myself, we had only treated Worski with respect and professionalism. It was the radical leftists who were the ones lying, cheating, and trying to manipulate him. And not only had this drama led to more live streams for Worski's channel, it also led to him changing his whole channel's format over to almost completely doing live streams, many of which exposed or discussed drama. But also, and more interestingly, Worski was beginning to open things up to more controversial topics, and in turn, controversial speakers. Enter the inventor of the alt-right himself, Richard Spencer. A conservative figure most channels get criticized into oblivion for even considering having him on. The state of Florida was ruled a state of emergency just for having Spencer scheduled to speak at a university there. And now Andy Worski was having Spencer on his live show. And as this was in the works, Worski spoke and tweeted about the upcoming event. He even invited the audience to make suggestions for who could join the live stream to oppose Spencer. Many names were bandied around for about a week, particularly Styx Hexenhammer and, of course, our boy, Sargon of Akkad. And that's why I say this was an an event that happened by chance and coincidence. It was Sargon's friend Kraut and that server drama that sparked the controversy, that red-pilled Andy Worski. This led to Andy changing formats and eventually inviting Spencer onto his show, who ended up being challenged by Sargon. Carl walked right into this mess and he had no clue where it was about to take him. But to be fair, I don't think any of us saw this coming. The first thing I noticed about Spencer and Sargon's lengthy 4-hour stream was the very stark and telling differences between the two combatants, and not just in their ideologies, but even more so in their presentations and demeanors. Richard was there ready to go right in the beginning. He's on camera, well dressed and well spoken. Sargon was 10 minutes late. He was using an avatar and a fake name, and he's going to be speaking rather emotionally and aggressively towards Spencer, as we'll soon see.
America's immigration policy put a man on the moon. That's your argument.
I just said that no. You know, Sargon, I'm not as dumb as you are, actually. I didn't say that.
That's a little bit of a stretch, Sargon.
Sargon, I just said that it coincided, and I actually think
well, you did say it was causal, didn't you?
I don't think an immigration act put a man on the moon. Are you this fucking moronic, Sargon?
Right from Sargon's late entrance, he starts his arrogance and pompousness. He laughs nervously in his very first sentence, in fact, which turns out to be a bit of a tick of his throughout the stream.
And what you feel like your political views are, and just, yeah.
Okay, well, I would just call myself an English liberal. I'm for... Enlightenment individualistic liberalism. I'm for Enlightenment.
Carl laughs things off left and right, like he's better and above all this rational discussion.
How is that group right?
Because you're forced to do that by the state. Did you sign a contract in order to be a citizen of the UK? The United Kingdom, obviously. Why is that funny?
Then Sargon does his next douchebag move. He repeatedly drops academic references to try and sound smart and enlightened. Apparently, Locke is a big deal for him.
Say Britain, as conceived of by Locke, is the protection of the rights of the individual.
As conceived of by Locke, that state was not invented by Locke. That state has a history far greater than Locke. It's ridiculous. Locke wrote this, therefore it's true.
Okay.
This is exactly what I'm saying. You're living in an autistic, dissociated reality where you ask moral questions like, shall a group have a right over an individual? Oh, isn't this so sweet?
I myself have never read Locke, but I'm a big Loki fan. Things really get interesting when they start discussing what is white, an absurd question which Sargon harps on for over an hour. Carl really thinks he's got a good point here, since there are so many variances of white people, I guess. Really, to me, he's just splitting hairs, trying to move his argument toward the supposed purity spirals.
You're literally making this argument. People are purity spiraling on Twitter, therefore the ethno-state will inherently purity spiral into a bloodbath. That just simply does not follow. It does not follow, Sargon.
It absolutely follows. The idea that you think a political purity spiral
doesn't logically follow,
the country
by the way,
won't end up in people getting shot is absolutely hilarious to me.
Sargon dwells on this purity spirals thing for a good long while. He really thinks he has a point here, but I think Spencer debunks it rather effortlessly. Now, we could break down the debate all day, but I really don't think much more is necessary for my point. Sargon clearly came off as unprepared, unprofessional, condescending, and desperate. He was going after Spencer like a wild dog. In my opinion, Sargon clearly lost here, and this was the beginning of his official fall. Sure, these debates are open to interpretation, and although most of the people I've seen agree with me that Sargon lost, I've also seen plenty of his fanboys argue for his win. But I don't think many people can argue with the fact that Sargon didn't act like he won. If you look at his behaviors following the debate, they are clear signs of a loser to me. First, Sargon was trying to eject himself from the debate at the end, crying about it being too late. It was 2 a.m. in Britain, he said. And maybe that sounds reasonable at face value, but when you consider the fact that he was struggling in the live situation, to me it really sounded like a cop-out. Also, if it was too late, why did Sargon then proceed to go into an hour-long after-debate discussion with his sycophant followers? Why retreat to your hug box to get compliments and ass pats if you already just won the debate? I don't know about you guys, but this is all looking like damage control to me.
Hey everyone, so I thought I'd do a quick after-action report with people who messaged me about the debate on Andy Warski's channel with Richard Spencer. So, V, how did you find it in general?
They advocated for
Romania during communism. That I know people hate the horseshoe theory, but listen, okay.
And even Sargon's fans seem to agree with this too. Not only did the dislikes overtake the likes on his after debate video, but the comments pouring in all seem to take jabs at Sargon for losing it this night, saying things like, Spencer got under your skin, Sargon's salty, and there were comments about how it was questionable to make this 50-minute video after their 4-hour stream, which he also put up on his main channel immediately, without taking any time to reflect. Sargon appeared to be losing his shit. Spencer not only beat him in the realm of ideas, he also called Carl out for not being as smart as he thinks he is. And much like how Kraut being called out for his fake accent triggered him, I think this comment for Spencer in the debate really seemed to trigger Sargon as well. Sargon's next move is what really confirmed he lost it without question. A few days after the debate, Sargon issues an apology video where he basically apologizes for not being prepared and doing terribly in that debate. With that said, I really don't see how people can still claim he did well after he himself admitted he didn't and was forced to apologize for it, but nevertheless, there are still nerds out there trying to defend him. Regardless though, Sargon not only apologized, he also took this time to launch his own movement aptly dubbed the Liberalists, a group of like-minded individualists forming their own collective to fight SJWs and the alt-right. I'm not kidding, he did this. This is not a joke.
I will be performing more live events and attending various conferences and conventions around the world, and I will notify you in advance, so if you wish to join me, the opportunity will be available to you. And to those who felt I did not do my duty, you are correct, and I apologize.
Now, remember when I said Sargon was becoming the things he hated? Well, starting your own political movement with the new term you coined sounds pretty familiar to me. That's because it's exactly what Richard Spencer did years ago when he came up with the alt-right. So while Sargon is planning to counter Spencer in the battle of ideas, he's also at the same time mirroring him in his political action movement. Sargon has become the left-wing Spencer, and this is another admission of failure by Sargon, if you ask me. By mimicking Spencer, Sargon has admitted that his own previous tactics were no longer working. Carl has failed, he's fallen, so he's altering his plans in order to win in the future. And that's actually smart in a way. Changing your tactics is the right thing to do in this situation, because Carl lost, of course. If they were winning, the tactic change wouldn't be necessary or advisable, but Sargon had lost. He had fallen, and this was the way he was planning his comeback. With all that said, I think the fall of Sargon is pretty clear now. Carl lost his debate with Richard, by his own admission, through not only an apology, but also in a change of tactics. And then there's other things to consider since then. For starters, Sargon hasn't appeared in a debate since then. He's only streamed with his brown-noser friends, while Spencer, on the other hand, has continued to debate and defend his ideas against opposers, particularly in a stream he did on Baked Alaska's channel about a week later. So if you just follow these two guys even a little bit, it's pretty clear who won and who lost. Spencer isn't the one apologizing and reforming his opinions on life, career, and political activism. Sargon is, and that's why I think it's fair to say he's fallen. Sure, he's still got the subscribers, the views, and the Patreon shekels, but he's certainly not the once cherished and supposedly untouchable creator he was once thought to be. And that's why the whole situation reminds me of a certain comedy movie starring Seth Rogen and James Franco called The Interview. This movie from 2013 tells the story of two reporters traveling to North Korea to interview Kim Jong-un. Along the way, the CIA recruits them to try and secretly kill the dictator on their trip. By the end though, they realize killing Kim won't stop his regime. Upon his death, he will just immediately be replaced by a brother, and their cruel regime will continue. No, the only real way to stop the dictatorship is to reveal to the world and the Korean people that Kim Jong-un is not the holy untouchable god he's thought to be. So by the end of the movie, in the actual interview in the interview, James Franco's character questions and eventually breaks Kim Jong-un down live on television. The Korean people see their supreme leader cry like a baby, and they finally realize he is no god. And if you haven't already guessed it, Sargon is the dictator in this analogy. Spencer was the interviewer who eventually made Sargon cry, bitch, and lose his cool in front of the whole world. Let's not forget, their debate was the most popular live stream at the time. It was #1 on trending, averaging around 10,000 viewers. Plus it's gone on to gain hundreds of thousands of views and replays. And now that the world has effectively seen Sargon crying on live stream, his once godlike, untouchable place at the top of the YouTube skeptic community is now gone. Sargon, so to speak. Carl has been exposed as not being as smart as he thinks, and that's why I say he has truly fallen. that about wraps things up for part 2, The Alt-Right Strikes Back. And much like The Empire Strikes Back, our ending here is a rather low note for our protagonist. But there is still hope. Part 3 was planned to be called Dawn of the Liberalists, where I spend an episode going over Sargon's cringy new collective of individualists. And although I have many criticisms of it, part 3 could also be seen as a positive return to grace too, in some ways. But a lot of that is still to be determined, since the liberalist thing is still so new and it is seemingly half-baked as well. So, with all that said, part 3 may have to be delayed for another week or two, or even indefinitely. That's really up to you guys and your interests. The first Sargon video was rather divisive, receiving mixed responses to say the least. So, if that's the case again with this one, I may just end the series here. But if you guys do want more and you want to see where Sargon goes with this liberalist stuff, hit the like button and leave a comment below. And what do you think about the fall of Sargon overall? Was the debate with Spencer a good showing for him? Or do you agree that Sargon really lost? And what about his after-debate discussion and apology? Can you really say he didn't lose after all of that? What was he apologizing for then? And what about all this fart-sniffing liberalist stuff? Seems like Sargon is really becoming the thing he hates, to me. Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.